Mario, don't you think art is as much fun as stomping Koopas?
How's it going, everybody? Cage Yours here with another episode of Pokévals, which is a series where I cover different Pokemon, whether I believe they're underrated, fan favorites, or just your own personal request, which is the topic actually of this episode and a Pokemon that I'm covering. And I will take different characteristics about the Pokemon, such as typing, abilities, stats, move pool, and be grading them on my own personal thoughts and how they stack up against other Pokemon within the current Sun and Moon metagame. And I'll also be providing different sets and Pokemon that could be good allies or counters to it as well. Now, for this episode, we're actually covering Toucannon, which is kind of your run-of-the-mill normal flying type that we are kind of accustomed to seeing every single generation if you think of stuff like Pidgeot, Noctowl, Staraptor, and such like that. And it is actually currently in the RU tier. RU is kind of in a weird place right now. It's in kind of like the alpha stage. They're just testing out a lot of different stuff, and it's going to take a lot to settle down. There are some Pokemon in RU right now that should not be in RU. I'm looking at like Lucario, Darmanitan, maybe even Kyurem, just standard Kyurem. Slowbro's down there. It's a crazy tier. It's going to take some time to get it sorted out. But for right now, that's where it's sitting. So let's take a look at its typing. So Toucannon's typing is normal flying, which again, like I said, we've seen before multiple times, and very few Pokemon with this typing have actually stood out. The main one that stands out is Staraptor, Mega Pidgeot in a way as well. And then you have Pokemon such as like Swellow, which is, it's gotten better with the buffs that it's gotten this generation. There's Braviary, which has been an RU. Dodrio got some really nice buffs, but a lot of the other ones really kind of like failed to stand out. I would say Staraptor or Mega Pidgeot are probably the two most standouts, usually chilling in borderline, I think as of last generation. But as for weaknesses, you are weak to Electric, Ice, and Rock. Ice is one of the best types offensively in my opinion. You have Pokemon such as like Mamoswine and Weavile, especially Mamoswine right now, just running around and able to just kind of like destroy anything in its way. As for Electric, you have to deal with Pokemon such as Tapu Koko, Magnezone, and just, kind of various coverage, whether it be like Thunder Punch or Thunderbolt. And as for Rock, Rock isn't typically too common of a type that you'll normally see. If you see Rock, it'll typically be something such as Stone Edge for coverage, thinking maybe like a Landorus, something of the sorts like that. But Electric and Ice are probably the two most common in terms of things you're going to see. Definitely kind of a problem, some weaknesses that do come with the territory of having Flying type, but I think it's well worth it due to Flying type's offensive capabilities. As for resistances, you resist Bug and Grass. These are two types that I don't think it's amazing to resist. Bug type I do think is better because of U-turn. Being able to take less from U-turn if a Pokemon pivots out on you is always nice. Grass isn't too common of offensive typing, or even just kind of like on a Pokemon that like might be a bit fatter, such as like Mega Venusaur or Amoonguss that might go for like a Spore. Serperior and Tapu Bulu probably two of the most offensive grass types. Tangrowth is also kind of in that camp as well, but yeah, it's really not that, that common of a type in comparison to others. And Toucannon really isn't going to be taking hits that well. It has, mediocre at best natural bulk, and so you're really going to want to bring Toucannon in kind of once you've weakened some other Pokemon and it's ready to sweep the game, or if there's something that's kind of standing in your way and you really just want to knock it out for the rest of your team to go through and others to clean up. As for types you're going to be hitting super effectively, you hit Bug, Grass, and Fighting. Now, I actually think hitting these types, Bug and Grass especially, is a lot better because, like I said, there's the bulkier grass types such as Tangrowth, Mega Venusaur, and Amoonguss. But again, currently I'm talking about OU Pokemon. I should actually start focusing more on RU Pokemon, just because that's the tiers within, and I actually don't think Toucannon has the ability to work in OU as well as the previous Pokemon I've covered. But still, it typically holds true that Grass is a bulkier type. And being able to hit Bug is always nice as well. Fighting is one of the best offensive typings, so not really, it's kind of like a frailer type, I would say, overall as well. So just being able to kind of eliminate those Pokemon is very, very great. Sock is down in RU currently. Lucario, the monster, although that thing is just going to destroy you, so not really too concerned about that. As for types that are resisted by your two stabs of normal and flying are Steel and Rock, which is actually probably the biggest problem for Toucannon to deal with, because it just can't really break through them. Its best moves to kind of get through them are Brick Break, which is able to hit both of them, but Brick Break is relatively weak in the grand scale of things. Bullet Seed, which is nice for hitting the rock types, but you still have to deal with the steel types. And, it has overheat, but its physical attack is way higher than its special attack, and stuff like Swellow can already kind of do that job better, given its, I would argue, better stat distribution, to be able to spam Heat Wave a lot easier. So steel and rock types really, really hinder Toucannon. It doesn't have the luxury of a strong move like Close Combat that Staraptor has to break through them. As for immunities, you are immune to Ghost and Ground. Ghost, just comes with the normal type territory, and Ground is always a very, very nice immunity to have. It stops your opponent from spamming Earthquake, and there's a lot of Pokemon that may be weak to Ground, and you can bring Toucannon in on them, so long as you make the prediction that they're going to go for an Earthquake, or maybe they're choiced in some manner, and then you can kind of abuse it, set up from there, go for an attack just to kind of weaken their team. I think definitely pairing Toucannon with that is a good idea, so you do have the ground immunity for another Pokemon, but again, be wary that you're not really going to want to bring Toucannon in to take these hits, because it will get worn down extremely quickly. As for the grade for Toucannon's typing, I decided to give it a C+. This mainly just came down to the fact that I think Flying is incredible offensively, but the normal type doesn't really help it out, especially if running the physical set. A special variant, a bit more because of its access to Boom Burst, but the physical variant really doesn't get that much off of it in comparison to the Flying type. And it's just kind of middle of the road. I don't think it's amazing, but I don't think it's horrible. Moving on to abilities, first off we have Keen Eye, which is the accuracy cannot be dropped by other Pokemon, and it ignores their evasiveness. So Keen Eye is typically not an ability you're going to see being competitively viable. I have never seen a single Pokemon actually run Keen Eye, really in a competitive metagame. I just don't really think that it's, reliable enough. It doesn't really do that much, especially because, a lot of Pokemon aren't running accuracy dropping moves, or, double team and minimize are banned, so there's not that much of a purpose for it. As for Skill Link, though, I believe that Toucannon was actually built with Skill Link in mind. Its move pool is a complete reflection of this, with access to Bullet Seed, Rock Blast, and Fury Attack, and stuff of the sort. And I think it's actually pretty cool. It's very reminiscent of Cinccino, which is, debatable which one is better. Cinccino, of course, is faster, but Toucannon is definitely stronger. So it's kind of a give and take in that way. But Skill Link allows you to have all multi-hit attacks always hit the maximum number of times, which is very, very nice. There's a lot of Pokemon that can really use Skill Link pretty well, such as Mega Heracross probably being the top Pokemon to do it. But that does have access to Arm Thrust with the fighting typing, which allows it to break those steel types and the rock types. That would kind of give it a problem, so that's, why it really helps that Pokemon out. But, being able to spam Bullet Seed, Fury Attack has lower accuracy, so maybe not as much, and Rock Blast is just very, very nice, and it can really deal some damage when you have a Choice Band or a Life Orb. Or King's Rock, of course, too, to get, a higher flinching chance, and it can get past subs, just break the sub and keep getting some hits. Very nice. Sheer Force allows your attacks with secondary effects to be 1.3 times stronger, and the effects are nullified. Sheer Force is, in my opinion, one of the best abilities that you could possibly have on a Pokemon. If you look at Darmanitan, Nidoking, Landorus, they're phenomenal. They just abuse it, and even if you have a Pokemon such as Nidoking with a relatively mediocre or decent special attack set, it's able to, with its amazing move pool and Sheer Force Life Orb, just destroy Pokemon. Unfortunately, though, for Toucannon, it does not have very many moves that can abuse Sheer Force. On the physical side, there really isn't anything that was kind of stand out that I saw as kind of yes, this really, really helps out Toucannon that could really use Sheer Force, if anything. And on the special side, I really only saw it with something like Flash Cannon, which his main purpose is probably to hit Diancie. So Sheer Force really was just kind of tossed on Toucannon with no thought really put into it. And it would be like, well, Sheer Force is a good ability, let's put it on this Pokemon, but it just doesn't really help Toucannon. So I don't think there's really any reason to run it except for on a special set, and I would just always run Skill Link. As for the grade for Toucannon, I decided to give it a B because of how well Skill Link and its move pool really kind of mesh together. It would be slightly higher if it could use Sheer Force better, but it just really can't. There's nothing that it can really do with it, and its pretty disappointing, honestly. So yeah, I feel like a B is pretty fair for that. Moving on to its stats. So Toucannon's kind of like stat distribution is it's okay. There's one, of course, standout stat, but the rest of it is kind of disappointing, and I feel like really holds Toucannon back. But let's get into that. So Toucannon's HP stat is base 80, which I believe like Primarina had something around the sort, if not the exact same thing. Which it works if it has decent bulk to back it up, but Toucannon has 75 in defense and 75 in special defense, which I don't think is enough to really support it. You're not really going to be running defensive investment in your Toucannon. I could see HP investment or something, especially if you have leftover, if you're running a specific amount of speed. But I just don't really see a purpose in putting it into a defense or special defense that much. So it's really not taking that many hits. It can take specific hits and actually abuse that, which I'll get to when we get into kind of the moveset and the replay section. But overall, just 80 HP just kind of, it exists. It helps it. As for the one thing that really stands out about Toucannon is the base 120 attack. This is very, very powerful. You take a look at Staraptor, which has about the same attack, and it just like Pokemon are not taking Brave Birds from this. It's very, very strong. But even though I just said Pokemon aren't taking it, I feel like that's after you get some prior damage off, whether that be from hazards or just another Pokemon getting some chip damage off, maybe through a pivot or something of the sorts. Because when I was experimenting around, Toucannon really kind of failed to pick up some of the kills to breakthrough Pokemon because they weren't afraid to switch out on it. There were several situations in which there was a Donphan in front of me for a lead or something of the sort, and Toucannon, if I Swords Dance up and if I Bullet Seed, I'd be able to kill this, and I figured, maybe they'll just try to get up their rocks or something, but they really were not afraid of this Pokemon at all, and they just kind of like attacked it straight up, or just kind of like, they just kind of abused it and didn't really, honestly kind of treat it as a joke. Which is disrespectful to my boy Toucannon here, but that was just kind of a situation I ran into, is that not a lot of people were afraid of it and therefore didn't switch out as much. But I think if you run, Jolly Nature and you get off the prior damage, whether it's be through Stealth Rocks or Spikes, then it can really, help Toucannon in that way. Moving on to its special attack, we have base 75, which is actually the same as Swellow's, and it has access to, stuff like Boom Burst, which is great for just spamming, and you just hit Pokemon so hard, especially backed up by Choice Specs. Even with, base 75 is not that good, but backed up with a very, very strong move with Stab, and then having Choice Specs on there, it really packs a punch. Although I do feel like it pales in comparison to Swellow, just for the simple fact that Swellow has a very, very high base speed, and it's able to get off the attack or pivot out if it needs to, just get a fast pivot on the predicted switch. And Toucannon, with its base 60 speed, just isn't enough. Keeping in the theme with Alolan Pokemon being very slow, Toucannon is not able to outspeed a lot of Pokemon, which is why I think you really need to have something like Sticky Web to kind of help it out if you really want to, use it for kind of a sweeper role or really put in the work. Or you need to run like Jolly and Max Speed in order to beat a lot of the Pokemon in the RU tier, especially that are walls that are on the faster side, such as Gligar or Max Speed Crawdont or something like that. Of course, Aqua Jet is going to murk you, but, maybe they don't know your max speed. I really do think that the speed stat holds back Toucannon from being a lot better than they could. If they move some of its investment from special attack or even its defenses into speed, it could be a lot better. As for the base stat total of 485, it's pretty good. I say pretty good in comparison to we saw Primarina, which was around 530, and Mimikyu kind of around the same mark as this. It's middle of the road. It's nothing super standout, but it's not exceptionally low. It's no Sunkern, that's for sure. Doesn't Sunkern have the lowest base stat total out of all the Pokemon? It's nothing standout, and I think that's the best way to describe Toucannon. Not to be too harsh on this Pokemon, because I do really like Toucannon. I like its design. I think it's just I think it's cool that we have a really, really angry Toucan Pokemon. And, I like the exotic nature that comes with a lot of the Sun and Moon Pokemon that we kind of saw in Hoenn. It's just that I think that it's, it's very middle of the road, and it doesn't overperform in anything, unlike maybe some of its normal flying counterparts. So for the grade for Toucannon, I decided to give it a C. The attack stat is definitely phenomenal, but the rest of the stats are just kind of not up the snuff and don't really. It limits its potential, especially looking at that speed stat. Moving on to the move pool, Toucannon actually has a very large offensive move pool consisting of Brave Bird, Beak Blast, Bullet Seed, Rock Blast, Fury Attack, Brick Break, Return, Boom Burst, Overheat, Flash Cannon, and U-Turn. Again, these are just the moves that I would recommend typically to use on a Toucannon set. Some of the other moves didn't really kind of meet the requirements or help out that much. Brave Bird is probably going to be your main form of flying stab. It just hits incredibly hard, base 120 attack. Of course, there is recoil, but you're just going to be kind of blasting through Pokemon with it. Beak Blast is a very cool move, and it kind of works like Focus Punch in the sense that it is negative priority, so you will be attacking most likely last that turn unless they have a lower priority. And the two pluses to it are if you get hit, they will get burned. That's just kind of something that happens, which is cool because you're heating up your beak. And the other thing is, if you get hit, you will still attack anyways. It's not like Focus Punch where you kind of like lose control and that's your turn, which is very nice. It could be very cool to abuse behind a sub as well. As for Bullet Seed, Rock Blast, and Fury Attack, these are all the moves that can really be used with Skill Link. I recommend Bullet Seed as the highest one. I think it's just very, very good for breaking through kind of bulky water types and the rock types especially that could give Toucannon's problem. Rock Blast can be nice for hitting other flying types. There's not really a Pokemon that really comes to mind on like, yes, you need to hit this Pokemon because it's like, Toucannon can't deal with it already with Brave Bird. As for Fury Attack, if you want Stab with a multi-hit move, then you can use that, but beware that it does have a chance to miss. I think it's 85 accuracy. Brick Break is Toucannon's go-to kind of fighting move, but it's rather weak in comparison to the other moves that I could potentially run with Brave Bird and the Skill Link. So I don't recommend it that much, especially because a lot of the steel types within the RU tier are going to take Brick Break like a champ, and it's not going to do that much. Return is just kind of like an alternative to Fury Attack if you don't want to miss and want a very, very strong normal type move. That's one hit, and you're not worried about sub as much. Boom Burst, Overheat, and Flash Cannon. These are the three moves that I would recommend on a Choice Spec set. Boom Burst, again, hitting incredibly hard, much like a, the Choice Spec Swellow set. Overheat is nice for hitting the steel types. I believe, specially defensive red steel, it does mid-30s to low 40s%. To something like Doublade, it's going to do within the 60s, 70s%, and into something like Bronzong is doing around 50% as well, around mid-range. But be aware, except for maybe on Doublade, you're not going to be able to pick up the kill again because of the special attack drop that comes with it. And then U-Turn is very nice just to have on a choice set, whether it be Specs, Scarf, or Band, just to get up on out of there. It is a slow U-turn, so be aware of the fact that you will probably be taking a hit because slow U-turns or Volt Switches are typically better on bulkier Pokemon. As for your support move pool, it's pretty small, but it has access to Roost, Substitute, Tailwind, and Toxic. I believe Substitute is probably the best out of all of these. If you're running something like a Life Orb or King's Rock set, you can get up a Substitute, Swords Dance up, and then just be able to get off the damage that you need. Roost could be nice with a Substitute set as well, but just be careful because you're not going to be able to get the raw power that comes with being able to set up a free Swords Dance. But if you feel like you need the recovery, it's there for you to use. Tailwind could be nice for kind of supporting the team if you want to get up a sub or something of the sort and then do it. Or it could be just nice for Toucannon itself just to kind of actually compensate for its lower speed stat if you really want to do that. Toxic is just kind of nice, of course, to hit Pokemon maybe you're kind of having trouble with if you're not running something like Swords Dance, maybe like Alamamola. But the steel types that wall Toucannon are still going to wall you, and Toxic is not going to do you any favors in that regard. I personally have not tried Toxic out, but if you find any use for it, let me know. In terms of your setup moves, we have Swords Dance and Workup. Swords Dance, I believe, is the most reliable out of these, giving you a very, very strong, boost to your attack, double attack, and you're just going to be doing damage, and it really helps to break through those Pokemon that are bulkier, such as Alamamola, Donphan. There was actually a replay where I was Swords Dancing up behind a sub on a Bronzong and just hit it with a Supersonic Sky Strike and just able to straight up kill it after I got a couple Swords Dances off. So it definitely helps out with the damage. As for Workup, I typically would only recommend this if you wanted to run a special variant but not lock yourself into anything via choice specs, or if you wanted to run maybe like mixed, so like mainly physical but having overheat for kind of coverage. Although I do, again, think that Swellow kind of performs better in the special category if you really want to work that. As for Z moves, we have Breakneck Blitz, Supersonic Sky Strike, and All Out Pummeling. Breakneck Blitz would probably be used with your return just to get off a very, very strong neutral hit. Supersonic Sky Strike, I think that this is one of the best Z moves currently. Is if you look at Pokemon in OU such as Salamence and Landorus just abusing it, Gyarados too, it just destroys everything in its way, and I think this is Toucannon's best Z move for sure. It's just like if there's a Pokemon that, you know, you're really struggling with, even if you didn't get up a Swords Dance, it's just going to kind of do a ton of damage. Of course, Steel types will be able to take it, but like I said with that Bronzong, after I got up, like, I think it was 2 Swords Dances, it still just kind of destroyed it. And then finally, All Out Pummeling is an option if you're running Brick Break, so you can just be able to hit something like Red Steel a bit better. Bronzong is going to be able to just take it neutrally because of the Psychic typing, and Doublade will be able to avoid it all around, so be very careful about that. It's probably my least recommended out of the Z moves. As for the grade, it comes to a C+ due to its pretty strong offensive move pool. The lack of fighting coverage is kind of a problem for Toucannon, and kind of tying back to its sheer force, no moves that are really going to be able to abuse it is also kind of a problem. Flash Cannon is really the only one, but its main purpose is to hit Diancie in that tier. On the special variant at least, otherwise Bullet Seed just gets the job done as well. And support move pool is rather shallow, but I don't think you really need that as much. I think Toucannon having a strong offensive move pool is really what it needed, and a reliable setup move and Swords Dance. Those are the main things going for it, but yeah, support move pool is lacking in just the coverage to hit those Steel types consistently and powerfully is what really brings Toucannon down. Moving on to the friends and foes. For the first friend I actually kind of recommend for Toucannon, it's Togedemaru, which is very strange because Togedemaru's stats don't really scream out like amazing Pokemon, you know, it really help out the job, but it's able to take Rock, Ice, and Electric type moves, which are all of Toucannon's weaknesses. And especially if in an Assault Vest, it'll just be able to take them extremely well. It's, you know, it just resists all of those typings, so it's a good switch in, you know, if Toucannon is really pressured by a lot of the Pokemon in the tier. Something that I was really running into was a lot of Kyurems in RU that were kind of proven to be a problem. Kyurem was kind of running through my team, and so Togedemaru might, okay, probably not, because they usually run Earth Power or Focus Blast, but regardless, for those 3 types of stats, you know, Togedemaru can actually take the hits for them. And also just get off a Nuzzle, which could compensate for Toucannon's lower speed. Next we have Galvantula, another Pokemon that helps Toucannon with its speed by being able to set up sticky webs, which is pretty much the main reason it's here. I ran a sticky web set with it, and it really helped out Toucannon, definitely to compensate for the speed, even though I was running kind of a Jolly Nature. Yeah, I feel like this really helps this Pokemon out a lot, and just having, you know, very strong Thunderbolts and Bug coverage is always phenomenal. Next we have Entei. Entei's main purpose here is to eliminate those Steel types that are so pesky for Toucannon. Entei is just a monster, honestly. Choice Banded, Sacred Fire just does work. It breaks through any Steel type that could possibly stand in Toucannon's way, and is my personal recommendation for a Pokemon to get rid of the Steel types to pair with Toucannon. Even though the next Pokemon, Alolan Golem or Alolan, can also trap the Steel types, I feel like that it lacks in the sense that Bronzong possesses Levitate, so, you know, it will be able to dodge your Earthquake, and even something like Wild Charge isn't going to be doing that much. And because you have Magnepull, you're not going to be able to get off a Galvanized return. You'll be able to hit Doublade decently hard, but your low speed might be a bit of a problem, even if you are running speed investment. I just feel like Entei kind of does the job more reliably to be able to take care of those Steel types. The last Pokemon here is Roserade, which main claim to fame is being able to get up Spikes and Toxic Spikes to help wear down Pokemon for Toucannon, which is, I guess that's actually something Alolan Golem can also do, that Entei can't, is set up Stealth Rocks, which is nice. But back to Roserade, is the Spikes and Toxic Spikes are just very nice to be able to set up those hazards, and also just get up a Sleep Powder. There's nothing really, you definitely will have to worry about Ice types, because, you know, both of them are going to hit you super effectively. But Roserade could be a switch in for the electric type moves coming at Toucannon. The other thing that Toucannon actually does well to help these Pokemon, though, is Toucannon provides a ground immunity for Togedemaru, Entei, and Alolan Golem, which is very nice that, you see this Pokemon also supporting the teammates, the other teammates, even if they are offensive, defensive, whatsoever. As we move into the counter section, you'll see kind of the main theme already starting with the steel types that I have touched upon a lot, with Bronzong and Registeel. Both of these Pokemon just able to take your Overheat, able to take Brick Break incredibly well. There's no really way for Toucannon to kind of break through them consistently. You can break through them, just not consistently or reliably, I would say. And so that's why I feel having Entei is such a good partner to get rid of them. You are able to kind of like set up on Bronzong and sub up because it doesn't really carry like if they set up like a Stuff Rock or maybe like a Toxic or stuff like that. I guess you could sub up, just be aware of Gyro Ball, and I've even run into some Hidden Power Ice variants. But yeah, definitely a problem. And Registeel is kind of the same idea, just a bit bulkier, able to curse up and set up on you, and you definitely don't want that, especially coming in something like late game. Doublade would also be another Pokemon I would say kind of gives you a bit of a problem, because Brick Break doesn't hit it, and Overheat isn't able to fully kill it, but it does do a decent amount. I just figured that it kind of was the same idea as the previous two steel types, so I didn't really need to put it. For these next two Pokemon though, Mega Glalie and Darmanitan, I believe these are two of the best revenge killers right now, just in terms of like raw power. And Darmanitan I think should be UU. I think it'll probably move up. It's just kind of a monster. Glalie provides the very strong Ice Stab that is definitely going to be pesky for Toucannon, and is kind of hard to switch in with the Refrigerate boost, just with Return, Earthquake, and they even run Freeze Dry, so your water types aren't exactly safe. Slowbro isn't that reliable of a switch in if they have Freeze Dry. And Darmanitan just has the raw power, and even if you set up Sticky Webs, it just has the ability to run Choice Scarf, which is pretty common, run U-Turn, and just Flare Blitz will nuke your entire team. Unless you have the right switch in, which Slowbro would probably be my recommended switch in to Darmanitan at the current time. So before we move into the items and conclusion section, I'm just going to move to, I have two replays I have to show. One of them is pretty short, while the other one is just a full game. I believe I wanted to show both of these because one of them just kind of showcases a Pokemon or a couple situations in which Toucannon is actually able to kind of set up and abuse its setup move with Swords Dance and really make use of the Pokemon in front of it to its advantage. The other one just kind of is a way to show how Toucannon can potentially break through some Pokemon with its solid skill link coverage. But yeah, so let's go check that out and we'll be right back. So here I am with the first of two replays I'm going to show. The second replay is a tiny bit shorter. It's just kind of showing how a specific amount of kind of investment and just like one of the proper times to sub up and use specific moves with your Toucannon. Well, this one is just more or less just kind of playing around common threats on their team. They have the Darmanitan, Glalie, two of the Pokemon that I said were pretty good for revenge killing in the tier currently. Aryu is just full of monsters right now. It's in the alpha stage, so a lot of them are going to go away, and maybe that's a good thing just because it's kind of stacked. You got stuff like Lucario, Slowbro, Kyurem. Like, what is going on with this tier? Darmanitan, it's kind of ridiculous. But taking a look at my team here, I have Toucannon. Now I'm actually running the Supersonic Sky Strike set on this. Just after kind of testing around with it, I really like just the damage it packs. I have Galvantula that set up Sticky Webs for Toucannon to get the speed, as well as my Silvally, which is actually Steel, and it has offensive. It's modest with Thunderbolt, Flamethrower, Parting Shot, and I believe the last move is just Flash Cannon, just to get off damage there. And also just for Glalie, just in case, there are Choice Scarfers or stuff like that, so Glalie can kind of outspeed them and get the kill. Donphan, just standard defensive with Rapid Spin, Knockoff, Stealth Rocks, and Earthquake. Slowbro, physically defensive, with Calm Mind, so it could take hits. And then Glalie, carrying Ice Shard. I do not have Freeze Dry on this set. The one thing I would say about this team is it definitely struggles with Kyurem. Kyurem just kind of destroys the team. I do not have a really solid Dragon switch in. I do have Silvally Steel, but again, I'm not defensive on it. Modest, special attack investment, and they always do run Earth Power or Focus Blast, which kind of just destroys Silvally. But luckily, my opponent does not have Kyurem here, so let's take a look at this game, though. They're going to lead off with their Araquanid. I'm going to start off with my Slowbro, kind of, anticipating maybe that or Dougie to start off. And I'm just going to go for Calm Mind here, actually, to try and scare this thing out, because I knew Leech Life doesn't really do much. Araquanid's attack stat is not high. It's just Liquidation with Water Bubble is amazing, so you don't really have to fear the Bug Stab that much. I go for Side Shock here, because he did stay and they go for the Crunch. As he goes for the Swords Dance here, and I go for the Scald, I am able to get the Burn, which is definitely helpful, as I'm freely able to go into my Donphan here. The Burn is, kind of nice. It definitely would not have taken me down the half, but I'm able to get up my Stealth Rocks here, and the Quick Sacred Sword for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why they made that play, but I'm just going to be able to go for Knockoff. It doesn't really matter. They weren't really doing much with their Shadow Claw regardless. So I'm going to take out my Donphan and bring my Slowbro, because I know I can kind of wall this Araquanid, except for if they were to get a defense drop with the Liquidation. So now it's a bit scary. I'm going to go into my Galvantula knowing, hey, wait a minute, I can get up my Sticky Webs and, possibly put in some work for this team. Now that I'm seeing it. So I'm going to go for Sticky Web here. I also figured I could probably scare them out with the Thunder, which does happen. If they did kill me, at least I got on my Sticky Webs. But I'm able to save Galvantula, and now I'm able to go into Slowbro that kind of wall Dougie. Now, I anticipated them to maybe try and switch out here, or just to, go for Earthquake or something like that, but they actually stay in and go for Toxic, which, that's a smart play. I should have recognized that. I should remember that, if there's a Pokemon that gets walled, they're going to go for Toxic. So, good play on my opponent's part. I am going to go into Donphan here, though, and just go for an Earthquake just to, try and finally finish this thing off. And I'm going to go for Knockoff just to possibly get rid of an item, as I do find out, there's no item to be knocked off in the first place, probably because it's Z-Move or something of the sort, I'm guessing. They're going to go for Liquidation just to finish me off on Leech Life. I mainly just did that also so I can bring in Toucannon to start, getting kills, because I could easily just start sweeping the team at this point. They're going to bring in, their Glalie after I go for the Bolt Seed. I didn't go for Brave Bird there just because I wanted to minimize the damage I took based off of recoil. So I'm going to quick Supersonic Sky Strike. I want to get this monster out of the way just in case it does take a Brave Bird after Rocks. Darmanitan is going to come in. It could have been, Choice Scarf and would have been able to outspeed me, but just the way that, kind of brought it in at the end, I figured it was just going to die. That crit did not matter, by the way. Brave Bird was going to kill regardless. I believe it did, 80-something%. 88% to 10 whatever. But it was pretty much guaranteed to kill at that point. So Toucannon is actually able to kind of pick up a sweep at that point, which is surprising. I did get the hazards up, and I did get up, Stealth Rocks, just Sticky Web, which really helps Toucannon to be able to pick off the kills, especially with Supersonic Sky Strike if there is something that you do struggle to kill. It's actually pretty nice. I don't normally see Toucannon, though, more as a sweeper, more just kind of like a breaker to help your other Pokemon kind of clean up. But hey, it got the kills here at the end. So we're going to move on to the second replay here. So my opponent's team is pretty cool. I like this a lot, Rhyperior, Nidoking, Goodra. It's kind of a fat team, honestly, with the Florges, Goodra, Alomomola going on. Even Rhyperior kind of on the physical side. But definitely threatening nonetheless. I'm running the same exact team. But I'm going to lead off with Donphan here, kind of thinking that they're going to lead off with their Nidoking because it destroys my team, honestly. And I just go for Earthquake. I just did not want to play around with any monsters. I also thought that they could potentially lead with Rhyperior for Stealth Rock or stuff like that, but I just wanted Nidoking out of the picture. That thing was too scary. I'm just going to sack off my Donphan at that point and go into the Glalie and double out into my Galvantula, predicting them to go into their Alomomola. As I set up the Sticky Webs, thinking, they're probably just going to go in the Rhyperior after that. I thought that they could potentially be Rock Blast here, so I didn't want to lose my Sash or anything. So I'm just going to go safely on the Slowbro and just double out into my Toucannon at that point. And I'm able to sub up here because Toucannon is actually able to take a Scald behind its sub. It's not Alomomola sub is not enough to break, and Scald is not enough to break Toucannon sub. So I'm going to be able to get the attack, and I could keep subbing up at this point and just Swords Dancing. There's really nothing on my opponent's team that would have been able to stop Toucannon, except for maybe, I am drawing a blank on that thing's name, the bug. the electric, Vikavolt, that's it. Vikavolt does have Levitate, so I probably wouldn't have been able to get past it, but unless it was Scarf, it wasn't going to be able to because Vikavolt is very slow, and I'm running max speed on my Toucannon. So I was just going to be able to keep, Swords Dancing up, subbing up, and this thing would drop the Bullet Seed, Rhyperior would drop the Bullet Seed. I have Supersonic Sky Strike in the back for Florges, and then I have Brave Bird that take care of the Goodra and the Vikavolt. So this is kind of just showing how a Pokemon such as, Alomomola is actually kind of good fodder for Toucannon to set up on, because a relatively weak Pokemon probably wants to go for maybe a Toxic or a Scald, and you could just sub up on it, set up, and if you have your Sticky Webs up and other hazards, then, they're going to be coming in, taking that damage, and you're going to be able to get off a very strong hit, whether that be Bolt Seed, Supersonic Sky Strike, Brave Bird, regardless, whatever it is. But yeah, so while, we didn't get to see Toucannon finally put in the work in that game, we pretty much know exactly what the results would have been, and I think it's definitely a good showcase of what Toucannon, can set up on and do best. But yeah, so back to the items and conclusion section. Alright, so welcome back to the items and conclusion section. So starting off with the items, we have King's Rock, Life Orb, Choice Band, Choice Scarf, Choice Specs, Leftovers, Flying EMZ, and Normal EMZ. King's Rock, of course, gives you the opportunity to flinch your Pokemon and your opponent's Pokemon, really annoy them. You're missing out on the damage provided by Life Orb and Choice Band, but it could definitely be annoying, much like Chinchino. Life Orb is just reliable attack, reliable damage rather, where you don't have to kind of like put yourself into a single move. You're not locking yourself into it. Choice Band if you want even more damage but want to lock yourself into the move. Choice Scarf is kind of in the same vein, just to make up for Toucannon's speed, but just you're not getting the power much like you are with you're missing the power in the King's Rock set. As for Choice Specs, it's very niche. That's probably the only thing I can really say about it. Again, Swellow just kind of does the job a bit better. Leftovers I think is better on a kind of like substitute bulkier set, such as the one that we actually kind of saw in the replay that had the the ability to take the Scalds and sub up on something like a Alomomola, or be able to just kind of set up on something like Gliscor. Not Gliscor, Gligar. Gliscor would be way too scary, but set up on Gligar and just kind of make use of it from there. Flying EMZ is just the very, very strong Supersonic Sky Strike, one of my favorite Z moves. I think it's one of the best Z moves, and just be able to take care of the Pokemon that stands in your way that you don't think you'll be able to get the kill with Brave Bird on. And then finally we have Normal EMZ, which is just for the very strong Breakneck Blitz. Slightly less recommended than Supersonic Sky Strike, but it exists and you can definitely make use of it. Moving on to the sets though, we have the kind of standard Choice Band set with U-Turn to be able to pivot out, Brave Bird as your very strong flying move, Rock Blast and Bullet Seed just for coverage, max attack, max speed with a Jolly Nature. Then we have the Choice Spec set with Flash Cannon for the Diance's, Boom Burst just to nuke everything, Overheat for those pesky Steel types, and U-Turn just to potentially get out of there as well. Modest Nature on this one, you can run Timid if you want to, but I just felt like, we got to get some power on this set. We got to be able to make up for the lack of power that Toucannon kind of possesses. Next is the Flying EMZ set. I actually have Keen Eye there. That should definitely be Skill Link with Swords Dance, Substitute, Brave Bird, and Bullet Seed. Bullet Seed, the Breakthrough Rock types, other bulky Pokemon such as Alomomola and Donphan. I just think it's the best multi-hit move that Toucannon has access to, and Brave Bird, of course, just to get off the damage. And then finally, we have kind of the bulkier set with the Leftovers. I say it's bulky because it has 40 in HP, because you need to... The 216 with the Jolly Nature allows you to outspeed stuff like Jolly Crawdont and just your basic Gligar set, which is the main thing because you can actually kind of abuse Gligar. You can substitute up on it, you can Swords Dance up on it, and then you can start firing away Bullet Seeds at it because, they run like Toxic, Defog. It's not really going to be able to do too much to you. Earthquake's not going to be able to touch you, so you can kind of just have a heyday with that Pokemon. So as for Toucannon's final score, I decided to give it a C-. This might seem pretty harsh. Again, I've expressed that, I kind of like Toucannon, but I just think that it falls short in a lot of categories. Those Steel types within the RU tier, just the relatively low speed, and just typing that doesn't really stand out that much except for the flying portion of it. I think that Toucannon is also kind of outclassed by the other normal and flying types in the tiers, such as Braviary and Swellow. I think they're able to do the respective jobs a bit better. then Toucannon is kind of able to. And the thing about Toucannon is I was struggling to kind of use it because there are so many monsters currently in the RU tier. I think maybe once the RU tier starts to settle down and we get past the beta stage, it could be a lot better for this Pokemon. Who knows, maybe it could start performing a bit well, but as of right now, I think it's kind of on the lower spectrum of RU. It could potentially move to NU at this current state. But this is why I love Pokemon, because, you know, we can always see how it will kind of evolve. The metagame is always changing. And so, you know, maybe Toucannon will find a spot, or maybe it'll go down the NU and be a monster down there. Who knows? But I think that's going to be it for this video. I wanted to express my apologies for having this video come out so late. I've been sick. My throat was just absolutely destroyed. It was like I was going through a second puberty. My voice was cracking all the time, and then it was just like apparently super edgy other days. It was just kind of annoying, to be honest with you. And I've also been having some midterms, but now that those are pretty much out of the way, it's just everything is cleared up, and I really like making these videos, so I'm happy to be able to get back to this and be able to talk normally and get these videos out to you guys. But if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe if you want to. I'm gonna try and, you know, get these out every single week. And if you have any Pokemon you want to recommend, go ahead and leave them in the comments. You know, I want to get started on, you know, seeing what you guys want to see. I want to see other people's thoughts on like what they really like from Sun and Moon. And if you've tested out some of the stuff for Toucannon and like, hey, I think this set actually works pretty well, then go ahead and leave a comment for that too. I want to see that. I want to test out these different sets. Somebody left a comment about Primarina on the last video, you know, saying, hey, this is a HP investment I found with, you know, certain defensive investment that really worked out for me. And, you know, I love interacting with that. I like seeing what you guys do. I think it's really awesome. So, yeah, just go ahead and leave a comment if you want to, and I will see you guys next episode.